Hey guys, Jocelyn here with Fantasia Elegance. In this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to make these very cute little teardrop earrings that use wire wrapping and wire weaving. This style's pretty quick to make and it is easier than it looks, and as you can see it's very pretty made with different stone and metal types. So real quick as we get started, I did want to let you know I have also done a written tutorial for this, complete with color photos, step-by-step instructions, and that will be available to purchase on my Etsy shop. I wanted to give you guys the option for those who prefer a written tutorial, so that you can have it for offline viewing or when you're traveling you can still make this. And it is also a great way to support my shop and support my channel so that I can keep making these videos for you. So I will leave a link for that in the description section right below this video. But of course that is not necessary to make this. I am committed to still offering a lot of free tutorials, so you do not need that to make this. This will be a full and complete video tutorial too. To make these earrings, you're just going to need two different types of wire, 18 gauge and 26 gauge. I'll be using copper from riogrande.com. You can use whatever you like. We will be using round, soft wire. And as you can see, I do have my 26 gauge wire wound onto this bobbin. I really like to do this with my weaving wires. You just wind it on like that and then you can snap it shut, because it really provides some great tension. It keeps it from getting any kinks or unraveling too much, and it makes it super easy to weave directly from the spool. So I will be using this bobbin, and I'll leave some links in the description section below if you're curious for where you can purchase your own of these. But basically I've just wound a whole bunch of 26 gauge wire onto this so that you don't have to cut a long length for weaving. You will also need some little teardrop briolettes that are top drilled. Let's see if I can get it to focus here. I'm going to be using ones that are 10 millimeters by 10 millimeters. They are heart-shaped briolettes. You can use teardrop shaped as well for this. Basically anything this general shape that will fit in that space should work, but they do need to be top drilled side to side. And just in case you're curious, I do actually purchase most of my briolettes and stuff from Etsy. You can just open it up and search for teardrop heart briolette and whatever kind of gemstone you want to use, and you should get lots of hits. I'm just going to be using some clear quartz for these guys. For these I used green quartz, and then for these ones I used labradorite, so really pretty with lots of options. For tools, you'll just need some round nose pliers, chain nose pliers, flush cutters, and a ruler for measuring wire. And do check if you're curious about the specific brands I'm using and where you can buy those. I have all that information in the description section below. So first thing we're going to do is cut some lengths of our 18 gauge wire, so go ahead and pull that out. And I've got some kinks on the end of mine here, so I'll just straighten that out. And we're going to cut two pieces for each earring. First one is going to be 3.5 inches long, and for those of you in metric, that's going to be just about 8.99 centimeters. And then you'll want another piece slightly shorter. It's going to be 3.25 inches, and again in metric, that's going to be just about 8.3 centimeters. And of course, I do recommend the first time you're making a design that you cut a little bit more wire than you think you're going to need. These are kind of the minimum measurements, but if you're making it for the first time, you might have yours a bit larger scale and run out of wire. So just go ahead and cut a little bit more for the first time you're making this. So go ahead and take the longer piece. We're going to be working with that one first, so taking the longer of the two pieces. And pull out your round nose pliers. And what we're going to do is just put a little open spiral on the very end of this. So I'm going to wrap the wire around, just like that, and I'm going to spiral this around, keeping the spiral open until I have about a 5/16 of an inch diameter spiral right there. That's going to be about 0.8 centimeters, just so you can follow along. So that's the size of our little spiral. And then what we're going to do is put a little loop in below this, okay? So using my round nose pliers, I'm going to grip right below that spiral, and I'm going to take this wire tail all the way around and behind our piece here, so that we've got a little loop just below that spiral that we made. And your loop should be just about 3/16 of an inch or 0.5 centimeter in diameter. And then take your shorter piece of wire. We're going to do something very similar. Again, just on the end of this with your round nose pliers. We're going to put a little open spiral in. On this one we want to be a little bit smaller, a little bit tighter. I'm actually going to use my chain nose pliers to tighten that on up just a little bit. There we go. Because what we want for this one is to have it sit in this space right below our bigger spiral that we made, kind of right next to that loop. So I'm actually going to make this a little bit smaller by undoing some of that spiral. I might also snip off just a smidge on the end there. So it should sit next to your larger piece that we just did, just about like that. So pull out your weaving wire now. We're going to start attaching these two together. And what we want to do is have about a 6-inch tail here. It's just about 6 inches. Go ahead and mark that point 6 inches in, and that is the point that we're going to wrap around these two right below that little loop we made, okay? So I've got my tail. I'm going to put that on the left-hand side, and then working from the bobbin, I'm going to start wrapping around, going from left to right. So I'm just going to pinch with my left hand here. I've got this wire going over top of them. I'm going to pinch at that point we measured, and just take from my bobbin and wrap around both wires. I'm going to do that twice. And these you want to leave kind of loose, because what we're going to do next is separate these two wires out a little bit. I'm going to bring my weaving wire up between the two wires and just wrap it around this lower one. And you might need to work it in towards your weave, because you want all these wraps to be sitting right up next to each other. And you can even use your chain nose pliers to kind of pinch everything together there. Alright, so I've got 2 wraps going around both of the wires and 1 going around this lower wire only. I'm going to wrap around just the lower wire again. Again, pulling it nice and tight, pushing it with my nails if I need to, so that both those wraps are right next to each other. And you can also use your chain nose pliers to kind of pinch everything down and flatten it out. Right there. Okay? And you want to make sure that your little spiral here is sitting right up and touching this larger spiral. So you can just readjust that as needed and make sure it's all sealed in place with your left hand. Alright, let's take our weaving wire from the bobbin again. We're going to wrap another time around just that lower wire, pulling it nice and tight, pushing everything together. So we now have 2 wraps around both of the wires and 3 around the lower one. Now we're going to start repeating that design. So I'm going to take this weaving wire, go around both wires again, and we'll do that another time, so that we've got, again, 2 wraps around both of these wires. Okay, and then we're going to transition to wrapping around just the lower one again. So coming up between our 2 base wires, put in 1, 2, and 3 wraps. What we're doing is making just a nice little 2 and 3 weave here with 2 base wires. So we're going to go back to doing wraps around both of them. We'll do 2. And I've heard this called the stepped weave before. It's a really nice weave for just 2 base wires, really quick and easy. Okay, so we're just going to be repeating that pattern, 2 wraps around both base wires, 3 wraps around just the lower one, the longer one, and repeating that pattern. And we're going to keep doing that until we have a 1 1/4 inch length of our weave. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we will come back. Alright, so as you can see, I have just finished 1 1/4 inches of this weave. That's exactly what we want. So at that point, we're going to start shaping the outer frame of our earring. As you can see, that woven portion is kind of bent into a teardrop shape. So we're going to start doing that. I'm just going to start putting in a little bit of a curve, bending both of those wires that we've wrapped around together. There we go, and we're just starting the suggestion of a teardrop shape. And then what you can do with this inner little tail, the shorter one here, is put another open spiral on him. So I'm just going to get this wire that we'll use later, I'm going to get that out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to take my round nose pliers and just start putting another little open spiral in here. A really nice, tight, small one. And I'm just going to keep curling that around and down until I run out of space and it meets that point where we've woven. And then we're going to take our weaving wire, still from the bobbin. I'm just going to start wrapping this around this other tail that we have. I'm going to push that first wrap right up next to our weave we made earlier. I'm just going to wrap this around and around, putting each wrap right up next to the previous one, just like that. Okay, and I'm going to keep doing that until we have 3/4 of an inch of just wrapped around from here up to here. Alright, so as you can see, I've just wrapped that weaving wire around and around and around until we've got 3/4 of an inch of a wrap around that 18 gauge wire. And then we're done with this weaving wire at this point, so we can just snip that off with our flush cutters. Get that out of the way. And don't forget to use your chain nose pliers to just push that end on down. Make sure it's tight up against the 18 gauge wire and isn't going to unravel at all. Okay, and then we're just going to continue this teardrop shape by wrapping that bit we've wrapped, or pushing that bit we've wrapped into the rest of the teardrop shape. And you want to bring this tail behind these swirls, and you can play around with the shape until you're happy with it. Just making sure that I've got a pretty pleasing shape going on here. And now to finish off this little end back behind, we're just going to put one more open spiral in. So using my round nose pliers, going right on the tip of it there, I'm going to wrap it this direction to the right. Just put in a little teeny open spiral, nice and tight for this one. And you might need to use your chain nose pliers to make that a little bit smaller. And what you want is for that bit that we wrapped, the wrapping around the 18 gauge, to just stop below this loop here. So that means I need to make my teardrop a little bit larger. So I'm just going to unbend this a little bit, because you want a little bit of distance that is not wrapped to go right behind that loop. And make sure you're double checking as you shape this as well that your stone is going to fit in this space right here, because that might affect how you go ahead and shape your wires. But mine looks like it fits there pretty reasonably well. So now we're going to use this tail here that we've been saving, and what I'm going to do is wrap just around this outer wire here a couple times to secure it. So I'm going to bring the tail over top and down between these two swirls. And I'm just going to push that wrap up next to the others we made. Let's do one more like that, going over top and then down between the swirls and pushing that wrap into place. Alright, and then if we turn this around to the back, we're going to bring this tail over so that we can hang our stone from it. And if I want the stone to hang in this space right here, you can kind of see we're going to need to position the wire accordingly. So I'm just going to bring it down slightly, and then I want this to be running horizontally, so if I turn back to the front, I'm just going to put a little bend in this so that it's going horizontally. And then what you can do is just slide your stone on the end, and we're just going to sit it in that space right there. And then we've got this tail we need to finish off so our stone doesn't fall off. What I'm going to do is bring it in front of this little swirl here. So let's bring that in front, just like that. And then I'm going to take this tail and start wrapping it around just this wire here that we have wrapped all the way up here. We're just going to continue that wrap with this tail now, and that will secure our stone in place. So wrapping it just around there once. And we've still kind of got this thing floating back here, not connected to the rest, so what we're going to do next is start using this tail to connect this back swirl to our top little loop right here. So to do that, what I'm going to do is take the end of this tail, I'm going to loop it back behind, I'm going to come from back to front, up through this space here. You can get it to focus. So I'm coming up through the space there, and I'll just use my chain nose pliers to pull that all the way through. And then I'm going to go over both this little front loop wire and this back swirl wire. So I'm going to take it around to the back again so that we've encapsulated both of those wires now. And I'm going to do that again. So taking this from the back, feeding it from back to front, up through that space right there and pulling it nice and tight, taking it all the way over from left to right so that we now have two wraps connecting this rightmost swirl wire to that little loop wire. Okay? And now I'm going to continue the wrapping pattern that we have from here, and I'm just going to wrap this little portion of this back swirl wire that you can see through the loop. I'm going to continue wrapping just around this wire. So to do that we have to feed it kind of up and through this space a couple times, which is going to be a little fiddly, but we can make it work. So I brought it up through. I'm going to feed it down again through that other side. You can see there. I'm just going to do that until we reach the point where this back swirl wire once again meets the top part of the loop, and we'll put two more bindings just like we did here up at that point. And then at this point, as before, I'm just going to wrap it around both of these wires here. So to do that, I'm going to feed it down through this space now, pulling it tight, and it's going over both of those wires. We'll come up from back to front, and again going down into that space so that we have two side-by-side wraps right there like that. Then to finish off this wire and make sure it doesn't unravel, I'm just going to wrap it a couple more times around this little back swirl bit. Okay, so we've just wrapped that a few times around this little swirl just to secure everything. And then you can go to the back and just snip off that tail with your flush cutters nice and close to the design. And again, don't forget to use your chain nose pliers to push that little tail on down so there's no loose pokey bits that can catch on anything. So we are almost done. We're just going to cut one more little piece of 26 gauge wire. I'm just going to unwind about a 5-inch portion from the spool. It's about 5 inches there, and for those of you in metric, that is just about 13 centimeters, a little less. So we've just got our 5-inch piece. What we're going to do is insert it right here, so I'm going up between those two swirls. I'm just going to give myself a little tail to hold on to, maybe an inch or so. And then I'm going to take this other length and just start wrapping it around this leftmost smaller swirl. So you're going to need to come down between those two. And we're just going to put a bunch of wraps, again, all right next to each other. I'm going to run this all the way up to here so that we can connect these two swirls right there like that. So I'm just going to keep wrapping this wire around until we get to that point. Okay, so I've just wrapped around right there up to this point here. And then I'm going to use what's left of our tail to just connect these two swirls together. So taking it around both of them there, bringing it around from back to front, and we'll just put, I don't know, maybe 4 or so wraps around both of those two swirl wires now. There we are, and you can use your chain nose pliers to push that down. Make sure it's all lying flat and tight. Just to kind of secure this, keep it from unraveling, I'm going to take it just once around the upper swirl wire. And then on the back, I'm just going to snip off the tail and push that end on down against the design. And then we just have this other little end that we used here. If we go to the back, we can just snip that off as well and push that on down. And on the front, I'm just double checking that everything is sitting where I want it to, and I'm happy with the general shape of it. I think it looks pretty good. So you would just go ahead and do another of these for a pair of earrings, and if you like them to be mirror imaged, you could do that. Of course, if you find that a little bit too tricky, you don't have to. But one little trick I found if you do want to make mirror imaged earrings is to just take the one that you already made and flip it over so that you are on the back side of it, and then just follow along making your second one, placing it on top of this, and just reversing everything that is top to bottom. So for instance, this is the back of this design. You can see this little swirl wire here is going over top of our loop. So you would just reverse that for the new earring, you would take this wire back behind. So just a little tip for making your mirror imaged earrings, which is a very tricky thing. A lot of people struggle with that, so no shame if you find that to be very challenging. So that is our design. Of course, you would just put your favorite pair of ear wires in the top, or you could even turn this into a pendant by putting a bail right through here as well. If you are curious about making your own ear wires or bails, I have done a lot of different tutorials on different styles of those. You can check those out on my channel. And one other thing I really like to do with this design is to antique or oxidize the wire. As you can see, it really brings out that depth and dimension for the weaving. I do use both liver of sulfur and a product called Midas Black Max to do this. Again, I've done tutorials on both of those methods, which are on my channel. You can check them out if you're curious. But a lot of people just prefer this raw look as well for the wire. Both are very pretty, and I think will make you or your customers very happy. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, found it helpful and easy to follow. Please leave me a like if you did, and also comment below. Let me know if you made this. But thank you guys so very much for watching. I hope you are having a great summer. I will catch you in the next video. Happy crafting!